George Valecchi here with Zach Cox, our England Patriots beat reporter from day one of Patriots training camp. It's finally here, wearing just helmets today, no pads, Zach, but we got a first look at sophomore quarterback Mac Jones, a new offensive coordinator who we're still yet to figure out who's calling the plays, and overall a revamped team. What were your first impressions from Mac Jones, though, just one day through and one practice through here at training camp?
More of what we saw in the spring, another clean day from Mac Jones. I had him 18 for 22 in team drills. As you mentioned, no pads yet, really not much the defense can do to really combat a lot of this stuff, but it was what you would want to expect to see from Mac Jones. And what really stood out to me were a couple of his wide receivers, most notably Devonte Parker, big offseason trade acquisition. He's a guy that doesn't create a lot of separation in his routes. He always ranks toward the bottom of the NFL in separation, but he's very good in those contested catch situations, and that's exactly what we saw on the field today. He had a contested catch against Marcus Jones, another one against Jack Jones, another one against Terrence Mitchell. The latter of those two went for touchdowns, and that's what he needs to be for this Patriots offense. And again, no defense really yet, but off to a strong start for sure. 3
red zone touchdowns from Devonte Parker today, and I jumped out right to me was the difference he makes with that offense. Really elevates him and the receiving group. But going back to the play calling, we saw Matt Patricia working with Mack. We saw Joe Judge, who's a quarterback coach, and Bill Belichick all hanging around. Did anything jump out to you, give you any lead of who you think will be calling plays come regular season time?
Well, it does seem like the leader in the clubhouse there is Matt Patricia. We saw some reports about that leading into camp and just watching him on the practice field. He was the one with the walkie-talkie seemingly radioing in the plays to the quarterbacks. But it does seem like it will be sort of a collaborative effort of crafting and sculpting this offense between Patricia, Bill Belichick, and Joe Judge. Mac Jones said all 3 have been basically leading offensive meetings thus far, so going to be a collaborative effort there, but it does seem like Patricia is the favorite to be the one actually calling the plays and radioing them in to Mac Jones.
Of course, none of them have had offensive play calling experience before, but a lot of head coaching and defensive coaching and special teams experience with them. And whoever does call the plays, it'll be a streamlined offense, as we've heard. Kendrick Bourne said it makes everything move quicker. What did you see from the offense? What do you think of that streamlined approach for the Pats?
Yeah, we've heard the word streamlined being thrown around since Bill Belichick first used it a couple months ago, but I think we got some new hints as to what that might actually look like. Not really from practice itself, because it's a little bit difficult to judge kind of game flow in these situations, especially so early in camp. But Trent Brown, Kendrick Bourne, and Mac Jones all said after practice that this offense is going to allow the players to play faster. Bourne used the word urgency. Mac Jones said the Patriots are going to look to get to the line quicker, call plays quicker. Maybe that means less kind of pre-snap stuff that they usually do. Maybe a little more simplified and again streamlined, that word. But the real kind of operative word here is play faster. And I'm interested to see how that looks once we get some real game situations.
Going over all the good here, any concerns from day one?
I wouldn't say concerns. Again, it's the first practice of training camp. You got a very long way to go. But I will say that it wasn't the strongest day for a couple mini-camp standouts. Trey Nixon was really the darling of mini-camp with some of those deep catches from Mac Jones. He didn't see a lot of work with the first team, was only targeted once, and that one target resulted in an interception. Also, Jack Jones, who I mentioned earlier, he had trouble with Devonte Parker. He also had trouble with Tyquan Thornton. So, again, too early to make any grand proclamations, but this is why they say don't overreact to minicamp. Don't overreact to these early practices. There's a long way to go, and a couple of guys that really stood out in the spring didn't really do so much today.
As all the players have said, it's just day one. They got to look at film, and then they'll review. One guy always breaking it down for us is Zach Cox. I'm George Valecchi. So long from day one of training camp.